Hi. Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm your astrologer for tonight. What's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and thanks for being here. Thanks for being patient, all 49 of you, and hopefully we'll have more on the horizon. It is an unusual Sunday night AstroLive because, well, it's not Sunday night. It's Monday night, but I felt like it would be a good night to do a show and get into the United States of America. I had a cowboy, American cowboy hat, all lined up and ready to go. But there's still a part of me that's kind of vain. I don't think I look very good. Every now and then you can wear something that's a little goofy, and it kind of works. And you're okay with it being goofy because it's okay to be goofy and not be serious and take yourself serious all the time, which I think is a good thing. But it's not one of those nights. Must be the Capricorn moon because I wasn't digging the cowboy hat effect. Anyway, we got a big, big show here planned for you, and we're going to get into what's going on with the United States. We're going to look at the Sibley chart for the U.S. We're also going to look at what's going on in Europe, and I've got the EU chart fired up and ready to go, and Europe is rapidly becoming a disaster, and all of it is utterly intentional. So we're going to get into that tonight, and the ramifications of that on a global level should not be underestimated. So we'll do some of that. What else do I have? I got Gavin Newsom's chart, and gruesome Newsom. I mean, I'm telling you, the guy's got the chart of a killer. Like, he's got a take no prisoners kind of chart. So we'll get into him tonight. I got a whole thing for Venus retrograde. I got Venus in every house for every sign. So you're going to get to see where Venus lines up in your chart and potentially what the retrograde could mean for you. So we're talking, kind of high level potential for Venus retrograde. And if we have time, we'll take a look at Cheryl Hines' chart. Cheryl Hines, of course, is Cheryl Hines, whom I have dubbed Lady Macbeth because she has that Lady Macbeth kind of vibe. You know what I mean? She's kind of over there in the background. And it's interesting looking at all the different first ladies. Like, there was no Lady Macbeth about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was pretty much running the White House. I mean, make no mistake about that. She was running the White House. And Bill was just being Bill. Having extramarital affairs and snorting blow and fucking around. And that was really his thing. And he made some, decent speeches, but he was Bill. It was Hillary. It was Hillary's show. She was no Lady Macbeth. She was running the show. Then you go to Laura Bush. Laura Bush is weird, man. Laura Bush is she's so strange. Laura Bush was a killer. Really, she was. She killed her high school boyfriend. If you don't know the story, she was at a stoplight with her car, and her high school boyfriend, who she had broken up with, crossed the street, and she accelerated by accident, of course, with her car and killed her ex-high school boyfriend. They weren't together. I think he had broken up. Really, if you want to break it down, she was so fucking pissed at him that she, I think, used the car as a form of vehicular manslaughter. So she's got some baggage, right? So you got crazy Laura Bush, stone cold killer. And then of course you got Big Mike. And I think that was a co-presidency. I think Big Mike was kind of top dog, if you know what I mean. Um, but they were on the same page, right? They were on the same page. It wasn't like, she was this POTUS whisperer. No, they were like a kind of a WWE tag team wrestling crew. Big Mike and the Mighty Sheik, or whatever you want to call him. So no, she wasn't Lady Macbeth. Then we get to Ivanka. I'm sorry, Melania. And Melania is definitely not Lady Macbeth. Melania is, well, she's different, right? Like what, 5 or 6 planets in Taurus, second house, I think. She's just, very self-contained, very European. She's not going to upstage her husband. Whatever you think of Melania Trump, she never, ever, ever once upstaged Donald Trump. Not once. She might have been banging a security guard back at Trump Tower. She didn't do it in public, right? So that brings us to Dr. Jill. I wouldn't call her a Lady Macbeth. She's more of a Nurse Cratchit, but with maybe better hair and better makeup, right? That's really her job. She's like Nurse Cratchit, with living room drapes as an attire. Still not a Lady Macbeth. Now, Cheryl Hines, on the other hand, now you're talking Lady Macbeth. Now you're talking President Whisperer. Somebody who's deeply involved in Hollywood, lots of liberal relationships, has to make sure that those relationships look good in public and in private, right? And she's a Virgo, so she's hypercritical. And by the way, Virgos will play the role of the power behind the throne. So if we have time tonight, because we have a lot on our schedule, we'll get into Cheryl Hines, and we'll take a look at her chart and Bobby's chart, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. All right, let's see what we have here. Thanks for being here, by the way. Appreciate your presence and your patience. Let's see. Diane Evans is here. Hi, Diane. There's my girl, Fran, CC Jones. Cato, I wonder if the tribes are charging a lot more for fireworks these days. I don't know. We have fireworks stands right down the road. They're legal out here. Out here in the county, I can blow shit off. I just might. You never know. Much to the consternation of the missus. She doesn't really like fireworks. But I might have to do a few. You never know. All right, who else do we have? Susie Gemini, what's going on, Susie? Let's see. LMN finally feels like summer. Not a fan. Oh, did you get our heat dome? Did our heat dome move a little bit eastern, perhaps? It's Christmas, but it's still popcorn. Popcorn. Hey, Bo, how are you? How are you doing? I secretly hate summer. I can see why. Summer's a rough season, depending on where you are. When I lived in California, man, summer was never rough in California. My big bitch about summer in California was it was cold. It was like I felt like I was getting cheated with summer a lot of the time, which is true. Unless you live like in Contra Costa County, where it's in the mid 80s and the 90s during the summertime. San Francisco, you freeze your ass off there in the summertime. Let's see, who else do we have? Oh, Diane Evans checking in at the Century Mark in the Northern California. It can get hot up there. It can definitely get hot in the foothills. That's for damn sure. Wow, there's a lot of enmity towards summer in chat. Let's see, who else do we have? Oh, we got a Ryan sighting. What's going on, Ryan? Good to see you. Mary Lee is here. Let's see, who else we have? Ms. Behaving too. Cindy Taylor, summer, not a big fan, dry or humid. Interesting. So we have some people in chat that prefer cooler climes, apparently. Let's see what else we have here. Dry heat feels less torpid. Thanks, Robert, for that bit of vocab. but it makes me look like old weather, old leather, old leather. You need cream. You need lotion. Let's see who else we have here. Thank you, Tom. We'll bring that up. We're gonna have Mark on as a guest next week. Um, so Mark Malone, who is Jillian's husband, is going to be with us next Friday, and I think I spent about maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes on the phone with Mark last night. And man, just heavy heart, just a really heavy heart, and everything that it was really about a year ago when Mark was on the Friday forecast, and he was talking about his work, which was really cutting edge work around organizing locally against the political machine. I mean, he was on all these shows, and I was like, wow, I knew this guy when he was like Jill's prospective boyfriend and fiance. Like I knew him before he even knew me. Like I was looking at his chart. He was living in England, and he moves here, and then about 3 years later, I think he's on Alex Jones, right? I mean, that's how big he was popping, and just feeling like he found his purpose, and you know, he had 3 kids, everything's coming together, and then his wife has this just incredibly aggressive form of breast cancer, and they're in a treatment place in Arizona to try to stem this thing. But it is the stories he was telling me last night was really really rough, and they had to travel all the way from I think it was South Dakota to Phoenix by car, and of course she's like got stage 4, super aggressive breast cancer, and she's just really uncomfortable. I mean, it's just a brutal, brutal journey. And yeah, we'll get into more of that next week. And look, it sounds really depressing, but there's a journey of the heart here, and we plan to uncover it so that the takeaway won't be such that you have this bad things happen to good people kind of experience. So be sure to watch it next week. All right, let's see who else do we have here. Yeah, full moon in Capricorn. Knight of Cups. Knight of Cups. What's happening, Knight of Cups? Let's see. Airbnb losing cities due to legislation. So I looked at. Thanks for bringing that up, Bo. It's not just legislation, which is finally kicking in, but it's also the market being completely oversaturated. And I was looking at some of the statistics yesterday. So Austin, which is a real big destination for people doing Airbnb and Verbo, down 55% from last year, which is huge. It's like a huge number. Here in the Hill Country, it's a little bit better, but it's still around 35%. And a lot of these people went in and they snatched up places, and they thought, okay, well, we're going to turn them into these, quick little short-term rentals. And look, in some ways, I understand it because it's really hard in America to kind of get a big leg up, right? Like how do you really, boost your income? If let's say you're working a regular job, let's say like I don't know, a CPA, and maybe your wife is a physical therapist or something like that. Like you could probably afford a decent home and in a relatively okay neighborhood. But the way the game is set up is it's really hard to get ahead. Like if you wanted to, get a better home, or if you wanted to pay for your kids' college education and send them to a really good school so they can get a really good job and not have to, kind of compete with other people and get stuck on the lower end rungs of the ladder. I mean, all that stuff takes money, right? It takes money, and in order to move up in America, a lot of those a lot of those chutes and ladders have been closed. And if you're really, really rich, you can start a bank or a mortgage company. It's amazing how many guys started fucking mortgage companies that are owners of NBA basketball teams. Yeah, let's start a mortgage company. And we'll just loan money. We won't produce anything, but we'll just make money off the interest, and we'll sell the loans, and that's how we'll make our money, right? And that's how they did it. Not everybody can do that. So Airbnb comes along, and it's a leg up for the average Jack and Jill in America. Oh yeah, we're playing the game. Some people even rent places and then turn them into B&Bs. Although in some areas you can't do that if they find out it's kind of a big deal. But I understand it. I understand why people do it. On the other hand, some people are fucking gung ho. Like here in town, they'd have 3 or 4 Airbnbs. I'm like, come on, like how many do you really need? The ones that bug me are the ones that didn't even live here. Like if at least if you live here, you can say that I live here and I care about the town, and therefore I could put some of my money from the Airbnb back into the town. But a lot, and I did a lot of legwork on this, and I looked at the tax rolls, and the people that own these places they were corporations in Phoenix and Florida and Utah, Austin, Houston. They own like 6, 7, homes that they flipped into Airbnbs. I'm like, this is not sustainable. And that's kind of where we are. So this is an interesting development in the real estate market. And we have Jupiter and Taurus. And I said that there would be kind of this soft underbelly, and it's kind of happening now, right? You're going to see people, they're either going to do one of two things with their Airbnbs. They're either going to sell them, or they're going to flip them into long-term rentals. Now, if they've kind of adapted their lifestyle to short-term money, they're going to have to make some adjustments, because instead of making maybe $2,000 a week, they'll make $2,000 a month, right? So for some people, they may just say, look, it's not worth it for us. And remember, a lot of these people were buying at kind of the height of the market when there was a lot of people who were relocating. So I talked about this in my webinar on Jupiter and Taurus, where there's a bit of a soft underbelly here until Jupiter goes retrograde. So if you're in the market for buying a home and you look around and you see that there's just a glut of Airbnbs on the market. In fact, I know this for a fact because I've been looking for places, and I could just see them. They're just sitting there, and they were created solely to be Airbnbs, or they were modeled to be Airbnbs. And guess what? They're just sitting there. So if they want to get rid of the property, and you have a reasonable amount of money and you can deal with the interest rates, which are a bitch, and they're not going to be going down, it could be a good time. But I feel like that soft pocket is going to close. Let's see. Here we go. Pen Greedy's here. What's happening, Pen Greedy? Artiseer, hail all earth, all still earthers. I like that. Still earthers. Let's see who else we have. Rama Lama. What's happening, Rama? Rama Lama Mama. Let's see. W.C. Ray, a moment of silence for Paris, France. Oh my God, this is really bad. This is so bad. But this is what they've been doing. This is what they've been working on. This is where, they've been bringing these people from sub-Saharan Africa, parts of the Middle East. We're talking Libya, we're talking Afghanistan, parts of Pakistan. There's Iraqis. You get the Sudanese. Man, this is just a clusterfuck. And it's right in alignment with Chiron and Aries, which is what we talked about a few weeks ago here on this show, and how in 1968, Chiron was in Aries and Paris was burning. And here it is, Chiron is in Aries again. And guess what? Paris is burning. Some of the stuff I've seen is just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. They're like driving cars, pushing cars, like they're hot wiring cars, and they're basically putting them in gear and accelerating them and then pushing them out of like 4-story like parking garages all at the same time, and they're flying down to the road like exploding when they get there. Then there was I don't know if you saw this, but there was this guy on like a motorcycle or a moped or whatever. He had a fucking chainsaw attached to his moped or motorcycle, and he's driving around with it, and the chainsaw is on. And there's this guy kind of jumps over the chainsaw. I mean, we're in Mad Max territory here. And, you know, I don't know what the French are going to do because, I mean, they're dealing with serious numbers. Now, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that people aren't talking about, but I've talked about it. This is outside of astrology. But again, it gets into Chiron and Aries. And, you know, we have the true node in Aries coming up, and it's right around the corner. We're just going to see more of this. So they're armed. Like, these just aren't people that are, you know, throwing like Molotov cocktails and shit. They're armed in Paris. These people that are raising hell are armed. Like, where do you think they got those arms? I can tell you exactly where they got them. Ukraine, because they have not been able to account for literally hundreds of millions of dollars worth of arms shipments. They just got taken out and they were moved. They were moved by the international arms dealers, sold, given away. So guess what? Now you've got a whole class of people, a migrant class of people who fucking hate Europe. Okay, they hate Europe. They believe Europe is the sole reason that their lives have been shit, and that's not true. And now they're going to even the score, and they will burn everything down. And this is where you get into Klaus Schwab's Great Reset and the Build Back Better. So if they're not going to do it via the government and the government participating, and oh yeah, we'll take this building down, we'll take this. No, they'll just employ the wrecking crew from these other countries to do the job for them. That's what will happen. And if you play this out, which I have, if you play this out, what's going to happen to the people that are essentially like burning Paris? They're going to go through all these other cities in Europe, and guess what? It's going to come to the United States. We're not immune here. We are not immune. And so, what's going to happen to the people in Europe if they're successful in burning down, you know, all this old and great culture, and all of a sudden you're dealing with these countries in absolute flames? Well, I'll tell you one thing: the Russians will take notice of it, won't they? Because there's going to be a bunch of states, nation states in Europe that won't be able to defend themselves. So Russia will look at it and go, oh, look at that. So now you've got the Russian angle, but the people that are the perpetrators of the mayhem and the violence, this is all Neptune and Pisces stuff. I started talking about this when I was at Gaia TV. When I was at Gaia, I did a whole show on Neptune and Pisces, and I talked about the whole migrant thing and the migrant wave and what it meant. And I said this before, there was a very famous pontoon boat called the Aquarius. Isn't it interesting? It did hundreds of journeys from Africa to Europe. But once the damage is done, they'll have no use for these people either, right? They won't have any use for them. It's like, okay, well, thanks. Because there's no way that they're going to be able to turn Europe into a civilized place when you have a horde of people whose sole goal is to destroy the place and the history and the memory. They're not really wired for much else at this point. Sorry, it's just the way it is. It's like, okay, gee, and now they're gone. You know, we're gonna sit at the school desk with our hands together, or our fingers together, and we're gonna learn from you guys about how to become model citizens of the the World Economic Forum and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We're ready. We're ready to sit down at the feet of the masters. Do you think they're going to fucking do that? No, because they can't stand those people either, right? And that's and the heads of Europe don't understand this, right? It's this altruistic genocide that they're participating in. And again, bringing it back to astrology, Mercury and Aries, this shit is just it's just starting to heat up, right? When you see these nodes, the South Node in Scorpio, man, that is the underworld. I mean, we're seeing shit that, this is Mad Max territory. This is Mad Max territory. And we're not that far away. I'm just saying, we're just not that far away. So we're going to look at the EU's chart tonight, try to wrap our heads around with it. Thank you for bringing it up, Robin. Let's see, who else do we have? Saturn taught me. Saturn's a good teacher. Paris is Bernie. Laugh my ass off. Robert's going to lay into Cheryl Hines. She's pretty insufferable. It's like she's totally insufferable. I have to say, there are some very good Virgo women out there. Very good Virgo women. But as a Virgo man, I've noticed that Virgo women can be kind of difficult. Like really critical, super critical. Well, sometimes you get some Virgo women with Venus and Leo and Venus and Libra, kind of smooths it out a little bit. But old Cheryl there, man, she's intense. Is this geocentric astrology? No, this is Western Placidus astrology, but thanks for asking. Let's see who else. Miss Nikki's here. What's going on, Miss Nikki? Patricia, hey, back to you. Yep, on fire for sure. Mark S., what's going on, my man? Mark S., Leela, all going to be at our big event here in the Hill Country. Let's see, warm fuzzies in chat. I got to get back to cooking, but I'll be listening. All right. I hope you're making a cake. A birthday cake for America. There she is, a lovely and talented one. Jonas, what's happening? I've been snacking here and chatting pre-party for 40 minutes. Oh, good. You guys are warmed up. There's probably your own show going on. Liddy Lou is checking in from Kyle, Texas. What up, Liddy Lou? Maya Rose is here. Hello, Maya Lapicious. Let's see, Trisha Yamoto. Hi, Trisha. Thanks. I'm happy to be live. Double B, Beth Berry's here. Prosperity Now. I love it. It works for Joseph Farrell. God bless Joseph Farrell. God bless him. I will hold a space in my heart for Joseph Farrell tonight. Olga Perez. How you doing? Olga's here tonight. Lisa Dawn T. Seguin. Good evening to you. Michael Sisternino, my man DJMC. What's going on, brother? I adore genuine goofy, and you are right, Robert. It has to feel right to rock something funky fun. I don't mind it. I'm not above it, but I wasn't feeling it. You got to feel it, right? Definitely got to feel it. France got their own Summer of Floyd. Oh, boy. The Catman is good. Guess what? We had a jailbreak. We had a jailbreak with Peachy today. Man, she was like a heat-seeking missile at the door. I had to go I had to trick her, pick her back up. And then I told you about the other cat that's now here, right? We found out he's got a fucking middle name. Okay, so his first name is Pippin, and his last name is Snowden, like Edward Snowden. He's got a middle name. It's James. How many cats do you know have a fucking middle name? Pippin James Snowden. Okay, not only that, but this woman who, I don't think she owns Pippin. Clearly, she doesn't own Pippin. Pippin owns her. But she was telling me, and I see them around. They have those kind of like golf carts that are kind of like ATVs. You know what I mean? The ones that boomers love. And so they have one, and I see them, and so they'll drive their golf cart ATV thing down the road, and they have these German shepherds in the back. So it's them in the front, and the German shepherds in the back. And I always crack up, like, how come we're not walking those German shepherds? Like, why are they riding the back of your cart? Well, I found out today that Pippin is actually in the front seat with these German shepherds. Like they're just riding shotgun. Like he's the one that's really driving this thing. He's a trip, man. I'm here for a live. We're glad you're for a live, Julie. What happened in Paris? So Paris is it's not just Paris now. It's headed to other places. Man, nice tan. You know what? I actually went to the gym today. I got back to the gym. I'm happy to go back to the gym. Claire, I'm so glad I didn't go to sleep. I'd be gutted if I missed life. We'd be gutted if you missed the live too. I can't chat list, so I'll be listening, but lurking. Okay, Mary Lee, lurk away. Cheryl Hines, yeah, that's her. Cheryl Hines. She's such a shrew. I don't want you talking to that Steve Bannon. Don't talk to Steve Bannon. Don't you ever go on Alex Jones. I just got over you being on Joe Rogan. We have to go to that fundraiser and have to face all my friends from Hollywood. Nah, that's what I'm talking about. Cheryl Hines. It's Cheryl Hines. They attempted to firebomb the Louvre. Doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, this is the we looked at this. This is the unhealed spirit of the Jacobins and everything that happened with Marie Antoinette and Louis XIV. It's unhealed. We looked at that chart. That egregore is still floating around France. This is so in as much as they have, like, you know, the dregs that they've sent there. I'm sorry. As much as they have those people who've been living on the streets for the last 2 years, defecating in public, right? Barbecuing cats on the curb. I'm sure you've seen those lovely videos. They are manifestations of the unhealed egregore. France needs a fucking exorcism. That's what it needs. Peter Bione, what's going on, brother? It's really bad. And you know what? You know what's really upsetting about it is that it can go viral across the planet. That's the upsetting part. Let's see. Who else do we have? Meowgical Capricorn. Hey, what's happening? Good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. Esteban Rodriguez. Peace, love, and prosperity, USA. Greatest country forever. We're going to do a fist pump for that. Because you see some of the shit that's going on in the world. And even with this shit show here, you're like, whoa. Man, we could be there right now. Well, guess what? There could be here. So you better pay attention. Let's see. Saw an interview with RFK and his wife was there. Too surprising. I didn't hate her. They're actually kind of cute together. Oh, I'm sure. I mean, look, they got nice little cute little energy. He's a Capricorn. She's a Virgo. You know, a couple of little cute Earth couple people. It's behind closed doors. That's when it gets interesting. Let's see. Who else do we have? Andrea Garland. What's going on, Andrea? Let's see. Gavin, now wife killed her sister in a golf cart accident. They always got weird shit, don't they? There's always weird fucking shit with these people. Dr. Jill giving all her Jersey girls a bad name. She gave a bad name a long time ago. The underage babysitter. That's right. Good for her. The scared Jill was supposedly South Carolina Day. The Donald was supposedly here on Monday. Yeah, man. Melania was classy. Whatever you think of Melania and the modeling agency and all that shit, she never undermined Donald Trump. Never. So Melania was, I think she was pretty top shelf, actually. And what does she speak? Like 3 or 4 languages. She's actually really smart. Mary Grayther, what's going on, Mary? Blackest Sheep, Bob Barker. Well, I'm looking forward to you being here. Thanks, Blackest Sheep. Cheryl Hines, aka Jumper Cables. That's pretty funny. I spent time at a nice pool today. Oh, Kelly B, I am jealous. I need some pool time. Maybe I'll buy one of those plastic redneck pools. Stick it out here. Turn the hose on. Sorry's my McMahon, Summertime Sadness. I feel like I live in Svalbard by the North Pole. Sometimes the North Pole sounds really appealing. I agree with that. Not a lot of winter lovers in here. I'm plump, so summer is not my favorite. It can be hard for if you're carrying around a little extra love on your bones. The older I get, the more I love summer. It used to be the fall. Hey, Marge is here. What's going on, Marge? Good to see you. Saw the Sound of Freedom Day. It was well done. So that's the Jim Caviezel movie, right? Where it's about a guy rescuing kids. Cool. We need some inspirational stuff. Hello, Wendy Fish. Good to see you. We got fall. Patricia likes fall. My favorite season, changing leaves and pumpkin picking. I like fall. I like all the seasons. Like them all. Yeah, Jelly is having a rough time, man. Jeez. Jan. Hey, Jan Shivino's here. I hate skin cream. Arlene Vega in the house, but we got a good group here tonight. We got the all-star crew here tonight. Moon Sprout, Holly Beth. Morning from sunny Cambodia. Cool. From floods yesterday to bright sun today. Cambodia in the house. JB 2020. Yeah, just really good crew. Zerlith, the Immortal. Hail starting at double speed. Good. Pam Whitaker, LMM COVID killed everything. The shots are so good. Oh, yeah. The shots. Don't get me started. Let's see. Who else do we have? Rainbows and Butterflies. Sandrine's Vox Services. Sue Leonard and Dawn. Universe had my back last night. Oh. Not good. There we go. Universe had Dawn's back last night. Let's see. Who else do we have? Sandrine's Vox Services. Are we good? Are we caught up? Lisa Novak, Peace from NorCal. Renstar. Renstar's. We got a Renstar site. What's going on, Ren? Let's see. Who else? Pono 888. Gone Squatchin. Kalergi plan in action. Exactly. Well, I think the Kalergi plan has something to do with, interbreeding and mixing. I'm not sure if the Kalergi plan had killing, burning, and mayhem associated with it. It was definitely a eugenics program, but maybe this is the updated model and version. Maybe it's the Killergy plan. Maybe that's what it's become, the Killergy plan. Christine Mose, we are not immune. I agree with you. Let's see. Leon Vincent Vito Radway. What's going on, brother? Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Man, we got an all-star crew. All right, let's get into some astrology. Let's do it. I got all these charts. All these charts lined up here. Man, oh man. Where do we want to go? Why don't we get our bearings on the planet? Let's do a chart of the moment. We'll stop here, or we'll start here rather. What's everybody doing for 4th of July? Are you guys hanging out with family, barbecuing? What's some of the barbecue go-tos that you guys have? Because if it's 4th of July, even if it's hot, you gotta barbecue. Like normally we usually have a bunch of people over here, but this year it's just us with our lonesomes. But we're still gonna do the barbecue because you have to. It's part of the ritual. We need rituals in the world. All right. We're going for the brisket. I cheat though. I have an electric smoker but it works really good. And I had no problem with cheating. So we're going to do brisket and some barbecue chicken. And we're going to take a crack at our own stuffed jalapenos, because I grew some in the garden this year, which is great. Here we go. All right. This is a pretty good looking chart here, I have to say. Oh, look at that. The ascendant is the same as my ascendant. We are in sync. So if you're new to the show, this is Western Placidus that I use, which I find to be very effective. What do we have? Oh, that's my chart. You don't need to see my fucking chart. I was like, wow, it's the same as my ascendant. Yeah, it is your ascendant, you dummy. All right, hold on. Like, oh, how convenient that is. Oh, that's a good looking chart. Okay. There we go. That's more like it. Okay. So this is the chart of the moment here. Do we have it on the screen? Looks like we got it screen shared, don't we? Okay, cool. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go just full like that. Oh yeah, that way you can just see it all. You don't have to see me. Let's go back here. Oh, that's gruesome Newsom. All right, here we go. All right, so just for locating ourselves in time and space, we have the ascendant at 24 Sagittarius here, just over the hill country, San Antonio. And we're coming up on the galactic center, so maybe we'll have a sense of purpose here, guided by higher forces with a distinct sense of cause and purpose as is generated by the great attractor. So that's right there. We're going to have faith in that tonight. Here we go. We've got the Venus and Mars conjunction. We're going to get into Venus retrograde. And boy, that is a sizzling duo, isn't it? That is a sizzling duo. But it's also very strange bedfellows with the square to Uranus. I mean, when I think of France, I think of a country like that's Leo. When I think of France, I think of Leo. I think of, like Louis, Louis the 14th in Versailles, and how everything is gold and resplendent, which is very Leo-like, right? And the French tend to be a very proud people, which is something that we associate with Leo. And Leo has never turned down the good things of life: wine, women, and Charles Aznavour, right? This is very, I think of the French as being very, very Leo-esque, very Leo-esque, or Leonine. In fact, they even have a city in France, right? Lyon, which is lion. And I think we can locate Venus and Mars as being symbolic of France in a lot of ways. And the conflict, there's no peace there. These aren't two celestial bodies that are vibing together, right? I mean, the first thing we see is that square with Uranus, and that is just friction and tension, and dare I say, it's revolution. It's revolution. And it's this thing is not going to go away until, where are we with it? Let's just see here. I think it's the end of the month. Yeah, it's the end of the month. I think Venus goes retrograde around the 25th. I have all the coordinates. We'll look at it when we get into Venus retrograde. So this thing is just not going to abate. I think Venus gets within about 2 or 3 degrees of Mars, but in the retrograde, it's, if Venus moved past Mars, I mean, theoretically, right? Like right now, Mars is banging the drum, right? Mars is kind of the lead in the celestial parade, and there's a lot of anger here. And you would think that Mars and Leo would be, filled with joie de vivre, right? Which is a French saying, like lover of life, like bon vivant, joie de vivre. And if, in any other time, it might be true, but not now. What we're seeing now, whether it's France or this is very destructive energy. This is very, very destructive energy. And when you have Mars, you have the theoretically the warrior, the militant, right? Mars is just about conflict, and then Venus is there, so it feels to me like it's not just one entity. There's something else going on here. Mars is conjoined with another. It's whatever Mars represents, or whoever is represented by Mars, is conjoined with another group, right? This is what's happening here. And so you have these two forces that are working together, and Venus is not engaged at all in finding any kind of middle ground or any kind of equitable solution. I mean, not at all. It's like it's really interesting. We've been watching these old movies on YouTube, and they're these kind of crime noir movies from the 50s. And I swear to God, they all have the same fucking plot. And it starts off, it's usually a crime job, but not always. Sometimes there's some other tension. Like I was watching this flick last night, and was this older guy. He didn't look too bad. He was kind of suave. He owned a sugarcane plantation in Cuba. And he brings with him this wife who is younger, and she's blonde, and she's a hot ticket, right? Total hot ticket. And so she goes to this sugar plantation, and she winds up like getting the hots for his number one man, his ranch hand, right? This Cuban dude. And the Cuban dude gets into a fight with this guy who is sort of the guy who runs the machines and everything, played by Lee Van Cleef, the famous bad guy from the Clint. This is way before he met Clint Eastwood. And so this guy has to beat Lee Van Cleef up. But before he does, what happens is that Lee Van Cleef has a machete. And so the old guy has a machete. Actually, the old guy has a machete. And he goes out to stop Lee Van Cleef, and he gets stabbed. So that means he's vulnerable, right? And then the young guy goes in, and the young guy whoops his ass. And so this blonde, you can just tell her, she's like it's getting her hot, right? She's getting all wet because she's watching this number one ranch guy like beat this other guy up, and then the rest of the movie is her trying to put the moves on the ranch guy. And so there are a lot of movies like this from the 50s. They're noir films, and then the guy who is the younger virile version of the guy that the woman is with almost always has a sense of loyalty and says, no, I can't do that, and pushes the woman away. And so there's this dynamic, there's this tension going on, right? Because that he wants to fuck her, but he can't because he's like loyal to the guy that picked him up off the streets or bailed him out of jail or whatever. But eventually what happens is, what happens. Usually they get together, right? That's Mars and Venus. That's what we're seeing here. We're seeing that kind of relationship happen and get played out before our very eyes, right? Like this is wanton. And if we wanted to put this over the skies of France or even part of Europe, it would be wanton violence. It would be utterly disruptive and wanton violence. Now let's bring in the end conjunct, which is Neptune here. And of course, it was like, oh, well, some 17-year-old got shot. Well, that's your Neptune in conjunct. It's like, well, okay, 17-year-olds get shot every day. And the community that a lot of the people who are in France and burning it down and doing who knows what else, they do a hell of a lot worse. Than, some kid who probably was out of line, was probably threatening somebody, and probably had a machete, and the gendarme was like, okay, we got to take the trash out. And then this is what sets France and Western Europe on fire. That is the Neptune in conjunct. It's like it's not even fucking real. It's like the scapegoat. I mean, Neptune is always associated with the scapegoat. And to me, when I look at this though too, there's also some really weird spiritual fuel, dark spiritual. When spirit, there's good spirits, there's bad spirits. I think this is bad spirits, right? Even Neptune it's retrograde, so it's not even advancing the cause forward. We're going back to 2020 and June of 2020, which was actually May of 2020, in the summer of Floyd. There's your Neptune retrograde right there. It's Venus will eventually go retrograde. Mars will move into Virgo. It's going to be a different vibe. But it's not good now. And I don't really think it's going to get much better, to be honest with you. Especially now we're going to have the Moon-Pluto conjunction. So we've got this full moon in Capricorn, which is the moon in Capricorn. It's a strange moon. It's kind of this I'm from the Midwest kind of moon, right? Like not a lot of emotion, not showing a lot of emotion. The strong silent type of moon, right? That's the moon in Capricorn. There's nothing wrong with the moon in Capricorn. It's a dry moon. It's an arid moon. It's sitting right next to Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn being the ruler of Capricorn. So there's some interesting things going on with the moon and Pluto here in the same sign. By the time we roll around the 4th of July, we got a Moon-Pluto conjunction. I'm just wondering what that's going to look like domestically. I think tomorrow when the parades start, the moon will be probably around 25, 26, real close to the Moon-Pluto conjunction. I mean, real close. I mean, it's going to be a conjunction, but it's going to be very tight in retrograde. I mean, right now we're in the height of the opposition, and we have Mercury and the Sun in Cancer. And again, we did a whole thing on Cancer last week, and I think Cancer is a very that's my mother speaking to the moon. Hey, Mom.
Hey, did you just get my text?
I did get your text, and I'm doing a show right now.
I'm sorry. Call me later. Bye.
I will. There you go. You never know. So, as soon as I start talking about that Moon-Pluto conjunction, who rings in? The universe has a sense of humor. So we have Mercury here and the Sun. They're together, nice 4-degree separation. Or this is a time where the moon is instinctual, right? Moon in Capricorn is all about survival. It's all about survival. It's all about looking to the future and figuring out what you're going to need. What are you going to need in the future? Like, it's not going to be summer forever. 6 months from now, we will be in the middle of winter, and I bet you we'll freeze our fucking ass off in the middle of winter. So you should start thinking about it now, right? That's the moon in Capricorn. It's not that it's not instinctual. It can be, but it's instincts that are survival based, and it's all about planning ahead. The Sun-Mercury conjunction is instinctual, and we have some nice action there with the trine with Saturn. That's trusting what you know what you trust, and trust what you know. like there's nothing wrong with that. Like you can make some really good moves right now. In fact, today I had a great idea, I think, and I'm going to follow up on it, but I'm not going to share it yet until it becomes a thing. And it was just, and for me, I always get my best ideas when I'm exercising. Darlena told me that. She said when you exercise, you get your that's your meditation. So this is a really good time, I think, in terms of tapping in to a source of meditation. I did it because I didn't go to work out to meditate; it just happened, and then ideas come, and I miss that. But you could do that, and you would think, well, Pluto or Neptune are going to be the outer planets that are going to be the planets that will transmit the kind of the greatest sense of either peace. With Neptune or Pluto, you could have some kind of very profound magnetic occult, out of body, out of mind, kind of experience. But really, Saturn here, I think, is underrated in Pisces. And with the retrograde, I think the key here is to move out of the fray, right? To move out of the noise, to move out of the frenzy with the retrograde, and find some ground and find some space. Like Kelly, going to the pool today, lucky Kelly. That's the trine we've got going on here, and I just get a good feeling and vibe with eventually where Mercury and the Sun are moving, because Cancer is the sign that looks back, and the first stop here is the trine with Saturn. So I almost feel like when we get into Pisces talk, we start talking about the soul, because Pisces is a 12th house sign, which is the house of the soul. So are we kind of moving into an astrological space where we can have things like soul retrieval? I think the answer to that is unequivocally yes. And soul retrieval is a very interesting topic and a very interesting phenomenon. And it does not have to happen like, oh yeah, I was on the battlefields of Sparta, and I turned my back and wasn't ready for some guy to ram his spear through my thorax, and it took me completely unaware, and I got to go back and get that part of me. Soul retrieval has a lot to do with this lifetime. Like this is a thing that a lot of people don't understand about soul retrieval. And these are moments in your life in this lifetime that you have either fumbled, fucked up, or did something that you need to I wouldn't say make amends for. That's not quite the language, but you are able to pull everything together in a way where that thing that punched a hole in your soul is no longer there. I'll give you an example from my own life, which I think might be helpful. And I've told the story before, so if you've heard it, please just bear with me, because there's some new people here. But when I was in junior college, I was a really, really good TV producer. Like, I was a hot shit TV producer. And one of the things that I was doing for like one of my last shows there is I was actually part of like a weekly TV magazine show. I was 19 years old. So we did this weekly show, and I was a producer there. And I came up with this idea for like a celebrity golf tournament, miniature golf tournament. And I had a whole thing together with a benefit for this school. I used to videotape these kids that had really severe disabilities. Like, we barely put a spoon to their mouth. That's how rough they were. So I thought, yeah, let's give. I mean, I'm sure they had plenty of money, whatever. But it was a good cause, and I liked the staff. So I'm doing this event, and it eventually kind of got away from me, because I was young, right? I was 19, barely 20, maybe, and I was really good. I had lots of good instincts, but I was still green, and I didn't really completely know how to deal with sharks yet. And I ran into some sharks, during this thing, and this production kind of got out of control, and it got taken from me because I wasn't paying attention. I'm not blaming anybody, but I wasn't paying attention. And I remember being down at the mini golf place. I mean, I'd done everything. I got the okay from the golf place. They had the course. I mean, this was kind of a big deal. We had local celebrities, 49ers, the DJs from local radio stations and everything. It was kind of a cool thing. And so it was a success. But we were doing a walkthrough, and something happened, and the teacher she was pissed off at me, and she was yelling at me. And then I put my hand on her shoulder, and she jerked my hand away. And, you know, I've said this story before, and she accused me of, like, you know, touching her and being like aggressive with her. And she had this guy who lied with her, right? They corroborated their story, and I went to go, you know, complain to the dean of the department, and it was like their word against mine. And what I didn't do is I didn't have other people who were there who would have had my back and had my own list, right? I was demoralized, I was defeated. And then I stopped doing TV after that. I stopped it. It was like I moved on. I said, fuck it, I don't want to do this. I don't like these people. So I studied English literature. And then fast forward, I'm 44 years old, 45 years old, and I'm producing this concert in San Francisco with this guy named Paul Horn, who was a musician, flutist. And I had this big gig that I put together at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. And Paul was a super nice guy. And I was doing everything in my power to make sure this thing didn't fail. And I wasn't even really thinking about that event from when I was 19. But one of the things that I did for promotion was I got him on the radio station that I worked at when it was the school that I was studying at. And they had a radio station there. And so they were doing some simulcasting. And this was 2000, I think, 5 and 6. It was 2006. So I brought Paul down there, and he did an interview. Paul's kind of famous. He did Inside the Taj Mahal, Inside the Great Pyramid, two of the first New Age music records of all time. And one of the guys on the crew doing the video was one of the guys in the crew from the event that I had done, you know, when I was in my 20s. So it was about 23 years later, 24 years later. Very interesting. And he remembered me, and I remembered him. And the event with Paul at the Grace Cathedral was a success, right? It was a success. And for me, going to that college and having him there and doing this whole thing was part of the package. That was part of the soul retrieval. That's why I'm telling you the story. Okay. That's why I'm sharing this, because soul retrieval doesn't have to be something that's way out there. It doesn't have to be on some plane or sphere of existence. It doesn't have to be from another lifetime or another timeline. It could be something that you experience in this lifetime that punched a hole in your soul. And I think it's essential for us to plug those holes. So I think this is the energy that we're staring at here with Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Pisces being what? The sign of the 12th house, which is the house of the soul. And it's retrograding. It's taking us back, right? It's taking us back into places in our lives that we need to recover. And that's exactly what Cancer does. That's what Cancer does. Cancer is probably one of the most efficient signs of the zodiac is Cancer. There is no fucking waste with Cancer. None. I mean, it does what it needs to do and recycles and whatever, right? That's how Cancer rolls. Not only that, but as we have the moon and Mercury and the sun kind of lurch forward here, you know, now they're going to be into trine with Neptune. So laying the groundwork now, right? Like laying the groundwork. And so look at your life. I mean, these are really important things to think about, because honestly, we don't know how much time we have with this construct. We don't. We don't know if this construct is going to last for another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I was watching John Levi today, and he was talking about the WPA and how really it was just, a cover up for the construct. You look at what's going on in France. I mean, they're burning the fucking place to the ground. We don't know how much time we have left here. We could have 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We could have 100 years. But I would say better late than never, right? Better late than never. And I think these things count. I think they matter because if you're going to pass on, you don't want that shit like lingering. You don't want it to be like one of these, what do they call them? There's all kinds of names in Tibetan Buddhism for these demons that are there at these various bardos. Those are your unlived experiences, meaning that you had them, but you weren't able to resolve them. And so the Tibetans saw them as these thought forms that they were yours. They weren't external. You created those things, right? And they were waiting for you if you hadn't finished your shit up, right? So I think this is a good time for that. This is a good time for looking at that Sun Saturn trine, Mercury trine, Saturn retrograde. Like what can you clean up? Sometimes it'll happen and it'll be right in your face. It'll be right in your face and you get to deal with it. You don't even have to, like invest in any intention. Life will just bring you what you need. And then there you are. But I feel like as the Mercury and the Sun move forward and they move, closer to trine with Neptune, which again is retrograde, like looking at what is the quality of your soul? This is the magic, I think, of these trines. And if you apply yourself and you're willing to deal with the emotional consequences, you should be absolutely fine. Like, and even with Jupiter here in sextile with the Sun and Mercury, it's kind of like, yeah, this could be interesting. This could be kind of an adventure. I was thinking about that show with Jason. What's his name? What was it? Something about Earl, or he played this guy Earl, and basically what he was doing is he was apologizing to everybody that he had done something wrong to, right? And I've been thinking about that show recently, and I thought to myself that it was kind of a precursor of like white guilt, right? Like okay, everybody loves Earl. Is that what the show was? I think that's what. And Jason guy played this lovable kind of doofus dude, kind of borderline redneck, lied, fucked people over, and it was his life mission now to apologize to all these people. And I thought to myself, oh, there's some weird social stuff going on here, right? Like they're conditioning people, in particular people, like the guy, particular people being white, like he's a white dude and he's going to apologize for everything. I thought, oh, that's interesting, right? In some ways. But then I thought to myself, well, there's something it's like maybe you could have done it in 2 or 3 shows and you didn't have to like stretch it out. My name is Earl. I think it's My Name is Earl. That's it. But I think there's something there. I think we're kind of in that territory now. And I'm not sure you have to go around and have a list and start apologizing to people. But it feels to me like we're getting life experiences now. We're getting life experiences now where we get to deal with some of this stuff. And I think it's important. And because I don't know how long the construct is going to be around. And you can only deal with some of these things in dense matter and third dimensional physical form. So, and then there's an acceleration coming. There's acceleration coming in 2 weeks when the Sun moves into sextile with Taurus. Mercury will be a little bit ahead of it because Mercury's moving faster right now. But that Sun sextile to Uranus and then the trine to Neptune, that's an acceleration point. And I think you want to be in a place where that acceleration point feels good. And when was the last time, honestly? I mean, look, I think it's important to separate what you're feeling from what's going on with the world. But we've gotten to this point now where it's very hard to do that. We can't turn and not run into some form of conflict in the world. If you decided to unplug from everything and kind of go, into into your own sort of private Idaho, yeah, you might be able to do that. But I would gather that most of you are very curious, and you're always on the internet, or you use the internet like myself, and you're searching and trying to untangle things, and then there's the random stuff that just comes your way, and it's not easy to be happy. It's not easy to enjoy our experience here. It's just not. It's like we've got hordes of people now that their enjoyment is to rob others of enjoyment. But seriously, like that's their enjoyment. They like that. Like they're happy and they're gleeful in by crapping on everybody else's life. That's their enjoyment. They're having a great old time, right? So for us, people who are conscious and aware, it's hard to have, what I would say a good time or an enjoyable time. It's not that you can't have it. You can have it, but you have to find ways, and you have to have these moments. You have to have these moments stick. And we're coming up on this acceleration. We're coming up on this. I think we're coming up on a wave here with the sun and the sextile to Uranus and the trine to Neptune. It's kind of like being blasted through a gate, and be in a good space. So when is that going to happen? A degree per day. So we're talking 10 days from now, July 13th, July 14th. Do your best to be in a good place. Yep, the sun is going to be opposing Pluto. I get it, right? I totally get it. 8-degree Pluto opposition. Pluto to me is sort of the magnet of hell, wanting to draw you back into, the folds of misery. So if you want to be in that place, and you've got 10 days to clean some things up. Because wouldn't it be amazing to be fully engaged and to understand the plight of the planet and where we are as a culture, a society, and all these forces that are determined to tear us apart and, make Rome burn, and not to sacrifice any of those things, and yet act as if you didn't have a care in the world? Like, wouldn't that just be the ultimate, right? And I know that there are some Christians that kind of get to that place, and they're like, yeah, I don't care what happens, because if it all goes to hell, I'll be with my Father in heaven. Right? They're cultivating their life so that they can have a peaceful existence here, and their peaceful existence will match where they go from this point forward, from that point forward. It's not really what I'm talking about. It's not quite what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is being able to understand the plight of where we are and fully understand it, and at the same time act like you don't have a care in the fucking world. And if you can do that, if you can master that, then you've got this plane. That you have nailed this plane, because you're fully aware of the samsara, right? You're fully aware of the samsara, and on the other hand, you're like, you know what? I can go in any direction I want to. Any direction I want to. I could bliss out, or I could choke a fucker out, right? Like, that's kind of how it is. That to me is the ultimate place of freedom. You are on a continuum where you understand fully what the circumstances are, but you are not a slave to them, right? So I feel like, and hey, look, there's a, it's kind of a big sell, but this is what we got going on here with these retrogrades and trying to kind of go back and clean this shit up and put it in perspective and be ready to let it go, right? The soul retrieval is here and now. Soul retrieval is about you patching up these parts of your life that at the end of the day, you're going to want to take with you wherever you go. All right. True node in Taurus. South node is in Scorpio. We're getting ready to make that move. I'm telling you, when those nodes flip, it's going to get hot. It's just going to get hot. So get ready for that. All right. Let's talk some other astrology, shall we? I got all these charts lined up. Why don't we start with the United States? The good old US of A. Good old US of A. Here we go. Okay, so I put two charts together here. And I do use the Sibley chart because I think it's probably legit. So I went with the natal chart and the progress chart. Now, in terms of the natal chart, there are some troubling things. I'm just going to be straight up here. I'm very concerned about Neptune moving into the fourth house of the US chart because Saturn is going to go through there at the same time. We're not there yet. It's not going to happen until the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. I think the 3-year period between 2026 and 2029 are going to be 3 of the toughest years on this planet ever. Okay. They're going to be difficult. And what we're seeing here with the United States is the dissolution, right? Saturn dissolves things. I'm sorry, Neptune dissolves things, and Saturn brings new structure. So, one order is going to end and a new order is going to begin. And I feel like that those 3 years are going to be all about the seizure of production and quite possibly even processing people for war. Okay. And the country itself, I feel like, is going to be either completely divided, with Neptune and having to deal with very autocratic Saturnian energies, or the flip side of that is that will be a conflict here internally. And are the two mutually exclusive? Probably not. And keep in mind, we've got these big eclipses coming in October, of course, April of next year, and they're all in Aries, and they're all hanging out right down here, right? And there's the Chiron return for the US, and that happens every 50 years. So, what are we dealing with Chiron? And we're talking about guns again. The guns, it's a never-ending story with Chiron and Aries. But also Aries is men, right? I was here. Let me show you this thing. I kept it because I wanted to show you guys. Let me just get out of here for a second. I wanted to show this to you guys. Is it still here? Fuck. Yes. Okay. So I was on Twitter, and I think I added to Christopher Knowles' feed, and he was talking about like what's going on in Europe and how a lot of these people in Europe have been doing stuff like meth and fentanyl and all these drugs, which lead, particularly meth, which lead to the possession of the individual by entities, and they go fucking nuts and they have superhuman strength. That story, right? So about 3 weeks ago, I'm making calls for my mother, and just as part of the recorded message, they're talking about an Adderall shortage. And I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. There's an Adderall shortage. Why is there an Adderall shortage? Like we had a companies that had no problem pumping out vaccines, but they can't pump out Adderall. So I use this ad to kind of punctuate the point here. But there's a reason I'm bringing it up. It has to do with Chiron and Aries. And check out this ad. Okay, so here we go. The shortage of Adderall continues. Why and how long could it last? Look at this fucking ad. You have this little girl, she's doing her work. This little girl, she's doing her work. This little girl, she's doing her work. And even this little dude. But then this guy, he's got his cell phone. And he's not, notice it's not a girl, right? It's a kid. And he's got his cell phone. And who do you think that this story is all about? It's not about these kids, it's about him. And when I saw that, like, there's your Chiron and Aries right there, right? That's your Chiron and Aries. That's the war on boys that they have been absolutely engaged in since they figured out that Adderall can kind of, whoops, wrong one, my bad. Adderall can bring their energy down, right? So this is a lot of what we're dealing with Chiron and Aries. The other part with Chiron and Aries too happens to be women. And women have fucking Chiron and Aries, and a lot of women are, they're pissed. They're not taking it. They're just as upset and angry as in fact, they're probably more angry than men. So we've got this Chiron. Okay, I'm going to go on record. And I think Chiron in Aries is going to be good. I think the true node in Aries is going to be good. It's going to be intense. And it will make a lot of people very uncomfortable because there are going to be people that are just, they're done, they're over with it. And I talked about this in the past. You're going to see Paul Kersey kind of stuff, right? Paul Kersey's Charles Bronson character from Death Wish. You're going to see vigilantes. You're going to see people that have just had it. They've just had it. They've been pushed too far. And of course, they'll try to take advantage of this with Chiron and use it as an excuse to, take semi-automatic weapons away, whatever, right? That's a big deal. I mean, these transits are a big deal. Saturn going through the third house. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens here when it comes time for the fall, because the third house is early childhood education. You got Saturn going through there. I don't see it being the same old program. Not after seeing the kind of late in the year demonstrations from the Muslim community, from the the Armenian community. You're just going to see more of this, more of these communities that have religious standards and very deep cultural standards are not going to vibe with the American school system. Period. End of story. This is the other thing too with Saturn going through the third house is that's really getting into the homeless situation and the drug situation, fentanyl. It's finally going to get some attention, but it's not going to be pretty. It's just not going to be pretty. And the last time Saturn was in Pisces in this position was the mid 90s, and by that time, these crack houses were all over the country and doing huge business, and it was dark. I mean, the 90s were just a very dark period of time, And I feel like that where we're headed is more of a redemption out of the darkness, right? Because Pisces tends to be dualistic. And, we went through really kind of the tail end of, I think, Saturn Aquarius was the branch Davidians, And so we went through a lot of darkness with Saturn and Pisces. And it feels like we're kind of on the other side or the other edge of what happened. And I think a lot of the stuff that happened during the mid 90s was just like flat out shocking to people. Like people didn't know how to react to it. They didn't know how to deal with it. We just, we weren't used to seeing like a house under siege for what, 30 days or 40 days. It was just like we did, how did we deal with that shit? We really didn't. Think about what would happen now. Oh my God. I mean, you would have people flocking. You'd have them flocking down there to Waco. It wouldn't just be Bill Hicks and Alex Jones. So I feel like we're kind of on the other side of this. And, the third house is also communication. And that you go back and look during that period of time, which is roughly 94 to 97. That's when the internet takes off. Like the internet starts to really bang around 96, 97. And that's when I started using it a lot. So here we go, right? What's going to happen to the internet now? Is it going to go to another level, or have we come to the end of a cycle with the internet? I think it's probably more the latter, actually. So that mean, are we going to see the internet get turned off? Probably not completely, but I think we could have some issues here with Saturn. This is the United States. Okay, we're just talking about the United States right now. I think the biggest issue though is Neptune, Chiron, Saturn to some degree. Although I think we'll be better with Saturn. Although next year we get into the square with Mars, and to me that's definitely on the censorship level. Mars and Gemini, like okay, free speech, even if it pisses you off, right? Because Gemini can be very contrarian, and that's what we have. We have this Mars and Gemini. It's kind of potty mouth and bratty. And it's Lenny Bruce and fuck you and Allen Ginsberg was saying that he needs to be able to use all of his language in order to feel poetic and free and access the totality of his being. That's like Mars and Gemini. In fact, Allen Ginsberg is a Gemini. So the Saturn Mars square is going to be a real struggle. We're not there yet. We're a good year and a half away from that, but it's going to come. It'll be there. And a lot of it will also have to do with our kids. But things are changing a bit, right? They're changing. Uranus is going into the sixth house. Uranus sixth house is not it's not an easy transit, right? Because Uranus is that's shit that's every day. That's the sixth house. It's just everyday stuff. And I've been having Uranus go through my sixth house, and my everyday shit has not been working right for a long time. Like I'm always having fuck ups on the everyday side of things. So we can expect more of those. There could be some innovation, but we could expect more of those. When we deal with something like the United States, it's the outer planets that are, really going to make the noise. But I do feel that, we have to watch Mars. And as Mars goes through Virgo and Libra later in the year, right, it's going to be at the top of the chart. And that's when Mars energy generally rules the United States. It's when it's in the sign of Virgo. Oddly enough, neurotic Mars, if there ever was one. And I think, I just feel like there's going to be a lot of nervous energy in the air, lots and lots of nervous energy. And people are just, they're on their toes. They're wired. I can see people thinking somebody is an intruder in their house, and maybe they are, maybe they're not. And, they take him out, right? And it's like, oh, well, look at this guy. He was racist or fill in the blank, right? I just feel like it's going to be a very nervy time, super nervy. Saturn goes retrograde, goes all the way back to 0, so we won't see it again at 8 degrees until next year. But it goes all the way back to 0. It comes into a wide conjunction with that moon in Aquarius. And I think that is going to be It's in November, I think right around Thanksgiving. I could see that being a very cold time, just in terms of the weather, with Saturn and the moon in Aquarius, and Saturn, like people like kind of shut in, locked in. I as a chart, I like the U.S. chart. It's not perfect, right? There's that Mars Neptune square, which to me just is our challenge with addiction, whether it's information or TV or distractions or pornography or drugs. That Mars Neptune square has been really a thorn in our side. We've never really overcome it, but there's always a new distraction and a new addiction. The squares to Saturn, with the Sun and Jupiter and Mercury, you would think that through those squares we would learn how to grow up. And Saturn in the 10th house, we would learn how to, be reasonable stewards of our wealth and our system, because Saturn in Libra is the scales of justice, and it's exalted in Libra, and we have Juno there, and which is, I think, fairly favorable. And over time, those squares would offset the square with Neptune, but we haven't moved off that Neptune square. We're still and it's gotten worse. I mean, you go back to the Prohibition, and these cycles of addiction have gotten worse, especially in the latter part of the 20th century. But I don't think this is a bad chart. I like the true node in Leo, in the 8th house, and you can say that behind the scenes the country is actually ruled by the ruling elite and bloodlines, and that might be true. That might be true, but that true node is our true node, right? And it's in Leo, and it has to do with aspiration. It's like this idea that, and I know it's kind of a bogus idea, but that everybody can be president. If you're born here, you can be president. Hello, that's a true node in Leo, right? But it's also in the 8th house, and you can, but you're going to need connections. You're going to need other people's money to get there. But I still like it, right? It's aspirational. It's one of those things about America where if you follow your heart, and through that 8th house kind of focus and that dedication, your dreams can come true. I mean, that's theoretically how this thing works. Venus Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, that's about land ownership. Everybody being able to own their own land, which I think is really important, right? Having a relationship with it. Now, the progress chart, that's a whole other story. I am not a fan of the U.S. progress chart, although clearly there are some potentially interesting things like Uranus on the midheaven. We'll be going through our Uranus return here not too long from now. What about 2.5, 3 years from now? We go through our Uranus return as a country, and it's right at the top of the chart, right? So that's technology, that's AI, that's computer systems. You ain't seen anything yet, boys and girls. Wait till we get through wait till Uranus goes into Gemini and we have this Uranus return. But I'll tell you what I don't like about the US chart specifically, and that's the Sun in Pisces at 18 degrees. This to me, we've got this Sun Neptune opposition, and we're going to be going on. This is going to be going on in the progress chart for quite a while, right? At least 7 years in terms of the absolute opposition. And then it's got to separate for about another 4. So we're in this opposition for like well over a decade. And I think it weakens the country. Sun in Pisces is like, okay, well, everybody can be here. Love is love. Everybody can be here. Yeah. Go to a drag queen tranny day at the elementary school, and go show the kids how you prepare for your show and what you do after. I mean, that to me, this is just the Sun in Pisces and the Neptune opposition. And if you don't like conform to that Sun Neptune opposition, there's critical blowback. That's the ascendant here, at Virgo 8. And I remember when Barack Obama ran for president, 2008, right? So that was what, 15 years ago, well before 9 Virgo. What did he say? He said, we're going to lead from behind. That's Virgo rising, boys and girls. That's Neptune in the first house. And in the United States progress chart, that Neptune is just going to get closer and closer and closer to the ascendant. And it's in its opposite sign. It's in its, guess what? It's in its fall in Virgo. We have it anyway, but here it's in its fall in Virgo. And it feels to me like there's only two things we could do with that as a country. We either become more spiritualized, which I think is hard with that sun in Pisces on the other side, and just wanting to hug everybody. We either become spiritualized, which is the potential of Neptune, or we dissolve. We dissolve. Literally, we dissolve. Like the closer Neptune gets to the progress chart on the ascendant, the closer we get to just dissolving into oblivion. And I clearly am concerned about that part of our chart. I mean, we've got some other kind of cool things. Sun, Jupiter trine, it's not too bad. 18, 15, the sun's separating a little bit. The progress moon, which changes signs every 2 years. Let's see. So we've got 10 degrees. So we're talking about probably like March of next year. Progress moon conjunct the progress sun conjunct Pallas. So what I think about that is I think that that's going to be a time when a lot of people are all going to be dreaming the same dream. That's what I think. People are going to be having these kind of prophetic moments, right? And they're all going to be kind of part of the same sort of puzzle piece, right? The same puzzle piece. It's like, oh, you dreamed that, I dreamt that, right? So I feel, to me, it's interesting, right? Even if it's the Pisces moon, and even if it's like balsamic here, and having to kind of let go. I don't think the moon is in a great position, but we have to have like some. Okay, so I talked about the soul retrieval for the individual, right? This is the soul retrieval of a nation right here. We have to have this. Like, this is essential. It's essential. I don't know how we're going to do it, but it's essential because once this moon moves into Aries, which it will, guess when? Yeah, right around the same time that Saturn is going to start to move into what? Aries. Yeah, Neptune will almost already be there. So throw in the progressed US moon. And just reminds me of that John Cale song, Ready for War. Are you ready for war? So this is important. I don't know how the hell we're going to orchestrate this, but it needs to happen, right? We need to have a soul retrieval for our country. And when you look at Trump and he says, make America great again. I mean, I don't know when America was really great, honestly. I mean, America is great in its kind of Gemini moments, right? Like America is great. I think the people of America were great. I don't know how great we are now. I'm just being honest. I don't know how great we are. I'm actually deeply troubled by the deep division in this country, and I'm very troubled by it. I spend a lot of time on like sports message boards and sports YouTube channels and shit like that, because you can kind of find the pulse of people with sports. And sports used to be this thing where everybody kind of agreed on mostly the same things. Maybe you didn't agree on the same player, but you judged the merit of that player as to whether or not they could actually play. That doesn't happen anymore. I follow the San Francisco 49ers, and they have this young guy in their team, Trey Lance. He seems like a really nice kid. He seems like a real nice kid. He's young. He was overdrafted. Trey's mixed, and he's got a strong faction of young people who, in their heart of hearts, believe that the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers is a racist and he won't play Trey Lance. I swear to God. And the 49ers have this young guy, Brock Purdy, who's about as wide as you can get. He's a Christian, did things that Trey Lance couldn't do very quickly, and the 49ers have named him a starter. There's a guy who I watched, good guy, basically picked up on Brock Purdy's talent very early on and said, this guy's a player. Wouldn't be surprised if he's a starter, and he's a 10-year starter in the NFL. He spotted him early, right? Trey got hurt. Brock Purdy comes in. Brock's a Capricorn. He's going to fucking be prepared. And I'm watching this guy. He's got this YouTube stream, and these people are showing up on his YouTube stream, and his name is Larry Krueger, and they're calling him Larry K Krueger, and they're not joking, right? They're not, they're accusing him of being like a grand dragon and all this bullshit over a stupid fucking game, okay? A stupid game. And it's not just one or two characters. It's a lot. It's a lot. And there are people who are in that kind of blogosphere who have played the race card against the 49ers. You know why? It gets clicks. It gets views. It gets super chats. And so the system is incentivizing this type of absolutely abhorrent dog whistle, right? That's what's going on here. This is what's been happening. I've been watching it, and it's bad, right? Sports was one of those things where that stuff never really crept in. You went to sports because you knew that shit was out there, but the long march of the institutions, into the heartbeat, into the marketplace of American culture through cultural Marxism, it's here, and it's divided the shit out of our country. I think it's very problematic, very, very problematic. You can even see it here in the progress chart, with Mars in Libra, which is in its fall, right? It's in its fall, and you get the social justice warrior vibe with Mars in Libra and square Jupiter. Everything just becomes much bigger, much, much bigger with that Mars square. Everybody's got an issue, right? Everybody's got an issue. And then here's Chiron coming in right in that opposition, dangerous, loaded, super loaded. And we haven't even gotten into the Pluto return. We're still in the natal chart and in the progress chart. We are still in Pluto return territory. And that won't be done by next year. I'm not a fan of the progress chart. I think this is a chart that poses problems. I will say this, though, with Mercury and Aquarius progressed, okay, which I think is not a bad place here for Mercury. Got it for 8 more years. And we got that trine with Mars. And if we wait for basically Uranus to speed up and catch up with this Mercury trine, that could be kind of interesting. Like we actually might have some technology that could, turn the tide a little bit here. But man, it is just so rough, right? Even Venus, which just went into Taurus and it's squaring Pluto now. And when Pluto goes back into Aquarius, this is going to be like everybody wants theirs. Everybody's going to want theirs. The values of the country have just been turned completely and utterly upside down. And I just feel like Neptune over here is just It's just dissipative. This is the thing that's weakened us. Our compassion, our empathy, and our Christian ethos has been weaponized against this country. And then you get into the whole guilt trip story with Neptune and Sun opposition. Oh, well, you're not going to take him. Oh, you're a fucking racist piece of shit, colonizer country, right? And so we have scapegoating going on, a lot of scapegoating. So we have to make it through this dissipative moon, right? This balsamic moon, and like Saturn's just on the wing. But once it gets right into this notch with the sun, right there in conjuncting Pallas, that potentially is the soul healing that we could go through. And again, the term that I would use would be dreaming the same dream. Dreaming the same dream. All right, what would that look like? Let me see if I can figure it out here. The chart. Give me a second here. USA. All right, let's go progressed. And let's see, let's go, how about July of next year? Let's see where that moon is. Yeah. So the progressed moon's at 23 degrees. The progressed sun is at 19. Let's go June 30. There. (23 and 19). Let's go back a little bit further. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking at. It's like the new moon. It's like the progressed new moon for America. And it's on April 30th of 2024. That's, to me, this is a day, right? This is when the progressed moon comes out of balsamic mode, conjuncting Pallas, potentially dreaming the same dream. Wouldn't that be great? And we're not even election season yet either, are we? We're a couple months away from that. Okay, so there's your progress chart. A little sloppy. Not a fan. Not a fan. But I am very intrigued by the metaphysical soul retrieval of this right here. Where's Saturn going to be? I'd have to go back to the chart. Back here. All right, here I'm going to do something because I gotta use the restroom. So I'm trying to figure out what to play while I do this. I know exactly what I'm going to play. Here we go. I got to find the right one. It's got to be long enough for me to. Here we go. It won't be 10 minutes, but it's long enough. All right, here we go. All right, let's take a little bit of a break. I'm going to play something here, and we'll come back, and we'll get into the EU. We'll look at Gavin Newsom and some other stuff, and if we have time, Cheryl Hines. So let's play a little video here. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Actually, hold on. It'll be very Cancerian. Very Cancerian. Here we go.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious coffee, freshly brewed, and all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs. Come to the snack bar now. It's time to stretch and fetch. See what's cooking at our refreshment counter. You'll find your favorite foods and beverages, plus many new goodies to tempt your appetite and add to your evening's pleasure. Everything's the finest quality. So treat yourself now. Nine minutes to go to showtime. Popcorn, rich with hot melted butter. All kinds of candy. Sparkling soft drinks. Steaming hot coffee. Steamed or grilled hot dogs. Crispy hot fresh French fries. Eight minutes to go to showtime.
Yes, sir. May I help you?
I'd like 2 of those, please.
Hot dogs? Yes, sir.
And 3 of those. And 1 of those. And 5 bars of these. And a cup of that nice hot liquid.
Coffee. Coming right up.
Oh, and 2 bags of those peculiar white puffy material.
You mean our crunchy popcorn? Shall I wrap that for you, sir?
Oh, that's all right. My saucer's just outside.
They come from miles to enjoy our intermission.
Seven minutes to go to showtime. Hot popcorn, just pop. Fresh roasted peanuts. How about a pizza? None better anywhere. Sizzling hamburgers grilled to your taste. We've a large assortment of freshly made sandwiches. Six minutes to go to showtime.
I'm sorry, sir. This is a private mountain.
But I only wanted it.
This mountain is reserved for patrons of drive-in theaters.
But
It's a supply depot for all sorts of good things, which people can get at the snack bar, like soft drinks, hot dogs, good hot coffee, candy bars of all kinds, delicious popcorn, and refreshing ice cream treats.
But I am a patron of this drive-in.
Well, why didn't you say so? Be our guest.
5 minutes to go.
Ah, hello there. Just a demonstration of my new invention, the goodies machine. Special for patrons of this drive-in, the machine turns out delicious hot doggies one after the other. And thirst-quenching sodas also. Gives popcorn of the most tasty kind, plain unbuttered. Candy too, crunchy and dandy. Steaming hot coffee and ice cream too. These goodies are at a snack bar just waiting for you. Mmm.
All right. Did you go to the snack bar? Did you stretch? How was that? Let's see. That's true about Virgo women. Yes, it can be very critical. Let's see. Cliff's putting some very interesting stuff lately about the Khazarians and aliens far up. It makes sense. Let's see. A lot of good socializing going on in the chat. Okay. All right, just trying to catch up here. A lot going on. New comments. All right. I live 30 miles from a drive-in place. I love drive-ins. I was very into drive-ins. Oh, that just got weird. Yes, drive-ins. You call drive-ins finger bowls. You should bring in drive-in movies back with good food and crap. They have them here in Texas, by the way. They have that stuff. Yeah. All right. Thanks for being back. Let's have some more fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the American chart there. Kind of rough. But you know who has it rougher? The European Union. The EU. So I'm not even looking at their progress chart, but they got issues. So we're an equal opportunity service here. So there's your EU chart. Now, you remember how I was talking about Neptune in the US chart? Well, they've got it natally. They have Neptune natally in the EU chart. I mean, so there's a bunch of different charts for the EU. This is the one that I use. I think this is the one where they finally sign all. I think there's like 3 different charts. This is the one that I think is a reasonable one. It's kind of like, you know, the final ink is dry in the paper, even though they dreamed it up years before this. But I mean, if you look at it, it makes sense in that you're going to have all these nations kind of blend together and become one. So, hey, let's put Neptune on the ascendant. I mean, I don't think they actually did it like that, but that's where Neptune is at 12:01 p.m. And you can see Pluto here, like retrograding across Neptune. It goes back to 29. So this is, I think, pretty tricky for these countries inside the European Union. And frankly, I don't like this Venus-Mars conjunction in the 12th house, because the 12th house is hidden, it's occulted. We know that Capricorn tends to be driven, Saturn-driven, elite, right? It's not always bad, but here I don't think it's good at all. I think they're doing deals and being, you know, unscrupulous. And with Saturn in Aries, you know, fucking putting the screws on people. And Saturn in the second house is not. Wouldn't Jupiter in second house be a lot better? Yeah, I think so. But no, and Saturn in Aries definitely limits the power of the people. Aries is the people. It's the person. It's the individual. And they may be all high and mighty with the Sun-Pluto conjunction up here, and kind of, transform everything. But the way that they're going about it, I think is just, with this chart, it's completely underhanded. And even the immigration stuff, which to me is very ninth housey. You have Chiron in Scorpio, and again, the squares kick in. Chiron squaring Jupiter. Oh, how many more can we take? Yeah, let's bring them. Sure, why not? We have all this Aquarian energy in the first house. We love the migrants, right? It's all very Aquarian. What's really fucked up about the whole thing is that the same people that set up these migrations were the ones that were setting up the NGOs in Africa and kind of fucking the only country that's really done much of anything in Africa is China. Like, China has gone into Africa and they've actually created trading partners. They bring the the leaders in Africa back to China. They teach them shit about leadership and teamwork, and say what you will about the Chinese. The Chinese don't indulge in color revolutions. The Chinese actually go in and start partnerships. The China astrologically is a Libra, so doesn't that make sense? That's not what the EU does. So the EU now is like, okay, well, the NGO didn't work. Let's just bring them here. We need a replacement. And the thing with the EU, and I ran across this when I really started to drill down and look at what was going on in 2009, 2010 with the housing crisis and the banking crisis and all the toxic mortgages and toxic loans. And once it got into the system, which it did, and the big entry point into Europe was Greece. Once it got into the system, it became cancerous and went through the system. And Europe began to experience some very severe financial crises as a result of this. And when you linked all these countries together like that, you would think, oh, well, there'll be a superpower or superstructure. They'll be able to take on the United States and the Chinas of the world. Well, that's just, instead of all boats rising, it made things worse. And if a domino fell in one country, it would fall in the rest of these countries. And that's, very much like Neptune on the ascendant. It's fluid, and it's not solid. There's no real definition there whatsoever, right? And the definition is coming from the plutocrats. I mean, really, this is how the EU is defined, is through Pluto and the Sun. These are plutocrats, and they're the ones that are able to aspect Saturn in a harmonic way, right? They're driving the power, but Saturn limits power. Saturn limits purchasing power. That's for damn sure. And prior to the EU, Italy had one of the top economies in the world. And now it's like, I think it was like number 5, and now it's something like 26. So I don't think any of this bodes well for Europe. I mean, with the chart in general, it doesn't bode well, right? And even Pluto in square with that moon in Scorpio, and you get a bunch of people in third world countries, and what they really did is they kind of fucked these people over, right? Just watch the movie Darwin's Nightmare, you know what I'm talking about. But they could have done what the Chinese are doing, which is create these partnerships. They didn't do that. It's not what they did at all. They went in and there was this, exploitation. But at the same time, they got these people all gassed up on cell phones and all this stuff that's associated with the West. And none of the so-called quote unquote good things, like whatever kind of spiritual or moral values that were part of like our experience or the West's experience. So they get them all gassed up on materiality, and it's the cell phone that is the carrier. And I've thought about this. Like the cell phone was such a game changer in a lot of ways, right? Like prior to the cell phone, and I'm talking smartphone, not just like your little fucking Nokia, but the iPhone or any phone that's capable of delivering a video signal. And it was such a game changer because now they could watch videos, they could see this excessive kind of consumption that was going on here, right? And not only that, but a lot of these people aren't dumb. A lot of them are not dumb. Some of them are actually very bright and have like a, kind of a very kind of streetwise and instinctual intelligence. And so some of them actually understand the score too. So they're seeing, all of this conspicuous consumption, and that's all they want. I mean, I'm not sure I blame them. That's all they want. They just see the shit. And I remember kind of a microcosm of that story. And it was a young guy, and he was, I believe, Puerto Rican or Dominican. I think he might have been. No, I think he was Salvadorian, and he and his brother and his mother and father were living in New York, and they were living in kind of the hood, not dirt poor, but clearly he's watching TV and he's seeing people and TV shows and houses, and he's like, I fucking want that. I want that. And so what does he do? Like 12, 13 years old, he's selling drugs because he sees that life, right? He's living in this country. And think about how it's being viewed in other parts of the world. And if I was living in these countries and I saw this shit, I'd go swim to these places. That's how much the cell phone was a game changer. But what they didn't get in any of that was any of the philosophical or moral or character attributes that I still believe exist here in this world, right? All they got was the junk food, and they wanted the junk food. And so once they got her, it's just like, okay, fuck it, we're gonna organize. And so this is your EU here, right? It's dissolving before our very eyes with Neptune on the ascendant, and they're gonna bring in like a new wave of individuals. That's the first house, Uranus and Jupiter, right? That's the body, that's the corpus of the European Union. It's the first house, and it's all under the auspices of Aquarius, but you have Capricorn rising driving the whole thing. So who's really driving it? It's Venus and Mars back there in the 12th house. I think this is a terrible chart, unless, of course, you're elite. If you're elite, you think you've got this thing under control with Sun, Pluto, trining Saturn. Yeah, we got this. We're going to manage this whole thing. That's not going to happen. Down here in the second house, Klaus Schwab's got 5 planets in Aries. They're all down here, right? So he's connected in. I think Klaus Schwab might even have Saturn in Aries, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is a shitty chart. And they've got real problems. And with Neptune squaring Mercury, there's nobody that they can really trust. There's nobody that the people inside of the European Union can trust. Not now. Certainly not now. So to me, this is a troubling chart. Who are the winners? It's the Plutocrats right there. They're the ones. They're the winners. They're managing the resources completely and utterly. And even that Moon Scorpio square, right? That's what I was talking about when I was talking about possessions and things. Like the Moon in Scorpio is very covetous. And here we have the South Node right on the moon, right? And it's bringing all these things up. That's what the South Node in transit does. It brings things up. And now Europe, you're dealing with a bunch of, scorpionic, intense lunar shit. And good luck. And that moon squares Uranus in this chart. I mean, this is very unstable. The Earth that's here is Venus and Mars, but they're nowhere to be seen. They're hidden in the 12th house, and these are deals, and these are, this is antagonistic energy. Mars in the 12th house is hidden enemies. There's no grounded Earth here whatsoever. True Node in Virgo, well, good. That's not much. Trust me. It's not enough to sustain this chart. Period. End of story. And it's all mostly outer signs too. Right? Scorpio's an outer sign, Sag, outer sign, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, all outer signs. So not much of it is really concerned with what's going on over here in this part of the chart, which is like the everyday person. Bad chart. Bad chart. Yeah. And just wait till Pluto goes into Aquarius at 0, starts squaring. This is far from done with Europe. They're gonna raise Europe to the ground. I can see that right now with this Pluto moon square. They're gonna raise it to the ground. I mean, you're watching something historically that is you're watching history. But you're watching a very dark version of history. All right. Let's talk about Gruesome Newsom. Apologize for the camera tonight. It's not working. So we're going off the old Apple cam. All right, here we go. American Psychos. Gavin Newsom and Patrick Bateman. Kind of look alike, don't they? So Newsom, I think, was adopted, if I'm not mistaken. And you could certainly make a case for that with Jupiter and Pallas and Venus in the first house. This is a guy that will stop at nothing for power. Gavin Newsom is a dangerous man. I'm just telling you right now. He's got Pluto exactly on his ascendant in Virgo, and he's got Mars and Sagittarius squaring Pluto. You do not want this man as president of the United States. He will rule this country like a dictator. Okay? Moon in Capricorn, he has no empathy. Right? I mean, the thing with Moon in Capricorn, look, I know there are people listening and watching Moon in Capricorn. If you have aspects to the moon, or even over time, the Moon in Capricorn will soften. But it's not the warmest and fuzziest of moons. So he doesn't, he doesn't have a lot of empathy, this guy. He just doesn't. And again, 12th house, Venus and Virgo. Jupiter and Leo. Oh, look at that. He's got Jupiter and Leo conjunct Regulus. Sorry, but that automatically qualifies him as being president. And I've gone down this path before with Leo and the Leo code. And anybody who is president in the United States has a strong connection with Leo, the sign of Leo. It's interesting because that's Trump's ascendant. And he has Jupiter right on Trump's ascendant, where Trump's Mars is. You remember when Trump said that Gavin Newsom was doing a great job? Remember that? Kind of interesting. Very interesting. I'll bet you Trump likes Gavin Newsom. And I'll tell you why. Trump has Jupiter in Libra right around this degree, right around the degree of Newsom's sun. So it's a Jupiter-Sun conjunction. And Newsom's Jupiter conjuncts Trump's ascendant and Trump's Mars. I bet he likes Newsom. And look at the midheaven. Donald Trump's sun is right on Gavin Newsom's midheaven. Like this is all kind of weird. It's like it's kind of weird and almost too cozy in some ways. I think there's a very good chance that Newsom will occupy the White House before the end of Joe Biden's term. Maybe not as president, but as vice president. Okay, so let's get down into the realm of nitty-gritty speculation, rumor, and innuendo. So apparently last night, they had a hazmat team. Some of you might know this. They had a hazmat team at the White House. Like that just doesn't happen, right? It just doesn't happen. And the White House was cordoned off. So the word in the street is that whoever this Biden character is had a massive heart attack and he's dead. And they're going to wait until after either tomorrow. This is just the rumor I've heard. Either tomorrow or they're going to wait till after tomorrow to announce that Biden has died. Okay. This is what I've heard. Now think about it if they announce it tomorrow. By announcing on 4th of July, they will change 4th of July forever. It will never be the same. It will be the day that Joe Biden died. And people will always remember Joe Biden on 4th of July. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there was something that happened at the White House. And I think something big happened. So what would be the next move? Okay, we go to Kamala Harris's charts. Pluto is pretty close to her midheaven. I have to go back and look at her chart. I really thought that Kamala would become president on those final degrees of Saturn and Saturn and Aquarius. I really thought that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And I'm wrong every now and then, and I was wrong about it, but I may not be that far off because Saturn's going to retrograde and probably be close to her midheaven, which would put her Saturn right at that axis point where it would be significant. And then this is the guy right here that she would name vice president. Mark my words. Mark my words. And then what would happen? Now, apparently, there's a rumor that Kamala can't run. She can't be president. That's what I've heard. Like I think she was fucking born in Canada, right? And she's like some kind of anchor baby, and like it could come up, and she could step down pretty quickly, like through some kind of technicality. And now all of a sudden, you got Gavin Newsom as president of the fucking United States. You think it couldn't happen? It could happen. And it could happen pretty quickly. Why do I say that? There's the true node right there in Aries. Remember how important the nodes are. Tick, tick, ticky, tick. He's having his nodal return. He'll have his nodal return in July, the end of July. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's something. That is something. And it's all 8th house. It's all behind the scenes. Power behind. This is not a good dude. I'm telling you, he is not a good dude. There's nothing good about Gavin Newsom astrologically. I can't find it. Can't find even Venus. Look at Venus. Venus pretty much like minor aspects, mostly singleton territory. It's got the conjunction with Jupiter, but his Venus is in Virgo, right? He's like super fucking picky, right? You know, and it's all, you know, how many affairs has he had? That's Venus in the 12th house. That's affairs, and he's noted for a number of affairs, right? This is, and then there's the whole weird connection with like Kimberly Guilfoyle and Donald Trump Jr. and Newsom, and even with Trump, like Trump's son is right there on Newsom. I don't know, you know. Yeah. I don't think. I mean, yeah, he's got Earth, but it's like it's intense, weird Earth. Pluto. I'm sorry, he's got Pluto in Virgo. He's got Uranus, but that's just weird Earth, right? It's not stable. It's all unstable Earth. It's like really unstable Earth. Even Virgo rising, like, you know, he probably doesn't leave his house until this fucking curl is, you know, Pat rallied over. And he has Venus in Virgo, but it's hard to like focus on that. I guess he has more Earth than I thought he did, but it's just, it's hard to focus on when it's hidden, when it's erratic, and then you have this moon in Capricorn, which is, you know, corporate. It's corporate moon. God, he'd be hell to live with Mars right there on the IC. Holy shit. I don't, you know, you look for like things like compassion and empathy with Venus, right? Like, can he be compassionate? No, he's like super fucking critical, hypercritical. And then, you know, with the moon, like, is there anything going on with Neptune? Oh, he's got a moon Saturn square. Moon Sun square. Emotionally, he's got that kind of, you know, Libra thing going on, kind of smooth, easy, but man, this guy, I'm telling you right now, this guy's a killer. He's a killer. And I think there's a really good chance that he might be president of the United States before you know it. It could happen quickly. And let's play this one out here for a second. Let's say, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen because I do think we're going to have an election in 2024. But let's say this thing goes down. Biden's out, Harris moves in, appoints Newsom, and then fairly soon, Harris steps down because of some technicality. What if Gavin Newsom declares a state of emergency or gets us into a war? He could be president for a long fucking time. A long time. And with Pluto on the ascendant in Virgo, square Mars, heaven help us. Right? Heaven help us. This is not the guy you want. Not good. You know, I'm not a fan of JFK or RFK. I'm not a fan of RFK, but I'd rather have RFK than Newsom. That is a rough chart. Not rough for us, not rough for him. Hell no. All right. Let's get into some Venus retrograde stuff. See, I got all organized for you people tonight. I got super organized. Venus retrograde, 723 to 9/4, 28 Leo to 12 Leo. So what can we expect? Well, I decided to go through each and every house to give you folks an understanding of where Venus is going to be and what it might actually do. So shall we go through them? Why not? I actually want to thank Mishi, the Doomer Boomer, because she said, oh, I need to understand this. I need to put it on the wheel. So there we go. We're going to go through Venus retrograde in every house. So that means that if you're Leo rising, you're going to have Venus probably in your first house. All right. So what are you doing? You're Leo rising. You got Venus in your first house. Remember, Venus's relationship, and that's a term that will come up here through the wheel. So this is all about re-examining vanity, right? Like your relationship to yourself. Like, oh, am I being too vain? You know, I mean, you could also have people be attracted to you, but the retrograde, they might be attracted to you for all the wrong reasons. This is an important one here. Do you choose certain relationships for popularity? With the Venus retrograde, you would kind of get into that a little bit, right? Like you'd have to look at that. You'd have to say, you know, am I with this person because this person knows these people and they're in with the in crowd, and you know, this person is my hookup. Like that Venus retrograde gets you to think about stuff like that. Now, the retrograde motion will take it into the 12th house. So that is feeling moved out of place. And then even if you're a Leo rising with this Venus retrograde, depending on because it's going to go retrograde at around 25. So maybe if you're if you're Venus at 0 ascendant, right, 0 degrees on the ascendant, at 25, it's still going to go into the 12th house. So that's Venus desiring retreat. Like, I just want to get away from the world. I don't want to deal with the world. Right? I want to have some peace of mind, recollect myself. But it's also one of those transits of secret meetings. And, you know, you just saw old Gavy boys, Venus in the 12th house. So what happens there? Not for prying eyes, private eyes. So that's Venus in the first. This is what you're dealing with. Re-examining your vanity. Asking yourself if you choose certain relationships for popularity. Literally feeling moved out of place. Like, I don't belong here. I'm not vibing with my environment. So then what do? You retreat, right? Desiring retreat. And in the 12th house, you could have, and they don't have to be synonymous, but it's also secret meetings. You know, you're connecting with people behind the scenes here. Okay. What else do we got? How about this one? Yeah, here we go. So this is Venus in the second house. I hope you guys find this helpful. So second house, material possessions. Re-examining your possessions, jealousy over what you have, right? So it's like you have the things that people are jealous about. Venus in the 8th house, it's more like you're jealous of what other people have. So it's jealousy over what you have. Also, Venus here in the retrograde motion is good for simplifying aesthetics, because, you know, Venus and Leo is a little ostentatious, can be a little garish at times. And retrograde in the second house, I think, could be good at kind of re-examining like what's in your living space and things like that. It's addition by subtraction. Also, you're dealing with joint resources here with Venus and Leo, and you need to have open conversations about them, especially if you're in a relationship where there's power struggles over finances and money. You know, one person wants to have a conversation, the other person doesn't want to have a conversation. One person has the bank account, the other person doesn't want to know, right? So with this Venus retrograde, that would put you as a Virgo rising, right? No, it's Cancer rising. You would need to have this conversation. Like really important. Really, really important. Okay. Let's see what else we have. They all turned out in a row, which was pretty cool. I did them. All right, so here we go. Venus retro third. So you're rethinking compatibility. Thinking is the key phrase. You're rethinking compatibility. I'm like, yeah, but it's all mental. It doesn't have anything to do with the heart. It doesn't have anything to do with the body. It's kind of isolated. I do think Venus retrograde in the third, which would put you at Gemini rising, by the way, is good for patching up sibling wounds. So if you've got issues with your siblings, this Venus retrograde could be helpful. Also, there's a debate of heart versus the mind, because the third house is ruled by the mind. And remember, Gemini rising, right now you got Venus in Gemini's house here. So it's in Leo, so you're doing this balancing act of the heart versus the mind. And this is an interesting transit. Like sometimes you're more than young once. And I think that the Venus retrograde in the third house can be good for rediscovering how to relate to younger people. And you know, whenever I think of Gemini, I think of Miles Davis and what a great musician he was. And he had no problem surrounding himself with all these, you know, hot shit young jazz music. They called them the young lions of jazz. And Wayne Shorter and Freddie Hubbard and Joe Zawinul and Tony Williams and John McLaughlin and all these characters, like Chick Corea. They were all playing with Miles. And Miles was like, you know, 15, 20 years older than these dudes. And he loved it. He just thought that they were going to make him better. He was right. But they always knew he was Miles, so they were never really upstaging him. So this is really good. This Venus retrograde, if you're Gemini rising, you know, you should be connecting with younger people, creatively sharing ideas. I think it's a good vibe and good energy. All right, who's next? I had to switch the template because the other one stopped working. But it's a cool little template, kind of similar. So now we're talking Venus in the fourth house, rethinking your roomies. Who are you living with? What are those relationship deals like? Get out of a bad mortgage. You could apply that to Venus in the fourth house, second house as well, if you wanted to. Get out of bad mortgages. Do whatever you can to get out of a bad mortgage. If you have to refi, whatever, right? The fourth house is also your home and your roots. So whenever you go into retrograde, we go into the situation, like re-examining your childhood. Here's the biggie: is your mother a narcissist? If so, that would make you essentially what Leo rising, right? Am I right? No, Virgo. So this would be, hold on, Cancer rising. Yeah. So hold on, that's Leo, that's Cancer, that's Gemini, Taurus rising. Yeah, that's right. Is your mother a narcissist? So if you're Taurus rising, these are questions that you're going to be dealing with Venus retrograde. The other one is, can you go home again? Right? Can you go home again? Can you return home? Thomas Wolfe said you can never go home. That's part of it. Maybe having to deal with your mother as a narcissist and this idea that you have to go back home again it's kind of a big deal, right? The other part is take what you can from the past and move on. So maybe you can't go home again. Maybe you have to go back and get a few things. Maybe this is part of a soul retrieval trip, right? Especially in the fourth house, and then Venus goes direct, and then you move on. But the Venus retrograde with the fourth house, you were definitely engaged in re-examining, reassessing, and reevaluating your relationships around who you grew up with, how you grew up, those influences in your life, and even reflecting back onto how they're impacting you with your own children. So I think this is an interesting one for sure. Okay. Here we go, Venus retrograde in the fifth. Re-examining your relationship with love. Of course, the fifth house is love and romance, play, and fun. Don't take your love for granted, right? Just don't. If you got Venus going retrograde there, don't take your love for granted. You're going to be an Aries rising, right? Like sometimes Aries people are just like that. And they don't. It's like they're just Aries. They're just being who they are. The Venus here retrograde, you might just be taking your, the love of your life for granted. And here comes the retrograde, and it's like, well, they're just moving right out of there. Well, geez, wonder why. I think it's also a good time to retrace ideas of innocence and joy, which seem to be in rare commodity. We were at Hondo's yesterday, which is kind of a famous place out here for Tex-Mex food and like music. They have a stage outside. They have a stage inside. It's dedicated to Hondo Lukenbach, who was one of the guys that started Lukenbach, Texas. And it's kind of a big deal, this place. We like to go there every now and then. So yesterday we went, and there was this older woman there on stage playing guitar. She was singing. She was okay. She wasn't terrible. And there were about 5 kids, and they were just dancing around. When I say kids, like maybe between 3 and 6, and boys and girls, and they were just so unaware of anything. And she played a soft version of "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog," and they were like dancing and prancing. And eventually, you know what happened? They drew the adults out, and some of the adults started to dance with the kids. And I thought, this is cool, right? This is the world that we knew. And this is Venus retrograde in the 5th house, retracing innocence and joy. Estrangement issues resolved? Question mark. I think that's a big thing for the 5th house. Feeling estranged from your parents, feeling estranged from your own upbringing. And then if you're in a relationship and you want to not take your relationship for granted, find a hobby together. See what you can do, right? Go back and retrace and figure out why you were with the person that you wound up being with. Who was that person? Why did you fall in love with them? Okay, here we go. So this is Venus retrograde in the 6th house. And again, I hope you're finding this useful. Where's the passion for your gig? 6th house is gigs, right? Venus is your relationship to your gig. In retrograde, the passion is questionable. So you need to ask yourself where your passion for it is. I think this is a difficult time if you're a pet owner and you have Venus in the 6th house. That would mean that you'd have Virgo, so you'd be Pisces rising, right? I think this is a difficult aspect because the 6th house represents pets. And if you've got an unhealthy pet and a Venus retrograde there, depending on what else you have in your chart, it could be kind of heartbreak city, right? Speedy diets, not diets of speed. See, that's the other thing with Venus. 6th house is your health and your dietary function, right? So it's kind of a play on words there. If you want to lose weight, eat light, do the keto thing. By the way, I think Mercola decided he's no longer keto, which is weird. I don't know why he did that, but stay away from drugs. Venus retrograde, 6th house. If you can't keep up with your workload, you may have to take some time off, or just don't stress yourself out. So you're trying to figure out how to stay in the game. Make fasting fun again. Well, we're on a health kick here. So I think of Venus and Leo as being luxurious, right? In the 6th house, it's not luxurious. It's more Spartan. Step back to find your Dharma. Dharma is a big part of the 6th house. And Venus retrograde, you're looking at your relationship with that. So you just step back a little bit. And, as an astrologer, I work with a lot of people. Like, what's my purpose and why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing here? Which is, that's hard for the times that we're in. That said, there's always something that can be done, right? Just look to your 6th house. Your 6th house will transmit to you your Dharma, like, what you can do. And with Venus here, if you have a Venus retrograde in the 6th house and you're not feeling it, just step back and say, okay, well, what can I do that can give my life purpose? And it doesn't always have to be some grandiose function. It could be even like, walking dogs that are part of a dog rescue program or something like that. And then also, I think this is a good one, is get counseling if you need it. If you're going through a Venus retrograde through your 6th house, definitely get some counseling. And you're feeling at a loss, like you don't have purpose, you don't have meaning, and every day, which is the 6th house thing, is just a soulless grind. Get some counseling. Talk to people, talk to an astrologer, talk to, a human design person or whatever, right? Like, talk to somebody, get some counseling. So when Venus goes direct, you can go back on track or get back on track. Okay, we got Venus in the 7th house. Right there. Partnerships versus pride. We think of Leo, think of pride. Like, sometimes it's okay to not win. Sometimes it's okay so that the other person can save some face. Pick your battles. Stood up at the altar. I don't know why that popped into my head, but it did. And to me, this is clearly a case of Venus retrograding and evacuating the 6th house. And you look at the house before it, which is the 7th house, rather. You look at the house before, which is the 6th house. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't be in this relationship. I need to work on myself. Like, that would be that kind of a retrograde. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Or maybe you just need to do it for a brief period of time. So I think communication is really important here. And if you're feeling rushed or you're feeling like you've kind of lost yourself, to say, hey, look, I just need a bit of a break. Venus is going retrograde into my 6th house. And I need to kind of get back into a bit of a routine here in my life so that I can put some things together and I can be a good partner. That I can be there for myself and I can be there for you. Right now, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling like there's too much demand going on. That's important. Character over appearance. Libra tends to be, the 7th house tends to be very appearance oriented. And I think, again, with the 1st house, you're looking at like relationships and who you're with. And by the way, who's with you as well with Venus in the 1st house. There may be people that are hangers on with you with Venus in the 1st house. You might be that person. They may think you're beautiful or pretty or glamorous or popular. And the retrograde comes along and you may rethink some of these people Same thing happens in the 7th house. And it's like, maybe, it's like in terms of relationship, maybe you begin to look at character over appearance. Like, oh, well, this guy or this woman's like really smoking hot or sexy or whatever. But with a retrograde, you may look at that attraction differently and say, wow, yeah, this person's got heart. This person has character. So I think that's part of the retrograde here. If your heart's not with it, then you shouldn't be in it. I think that's important too, right? That's another piece. The 7th house, even though it only represents a couple of things, really, like partnerships and contracts, it's the most basic and fundamental house. But it's clear, if you're not in it, if your heart is not in it, then maybe you shouldn't be in it. That's different than feeling overwhelmed and feeling like you have to kind of regroup or retrace and maybe, go off and rent a cabin somewhere, go journal or take pictures or who knows what, right? Take ayahuasca. No, I wouldn't do that with Venus in the 6th house. But that's different than realizing in a relationship that you're not into it. There's always a second chance. I don't know why I put that in there, but it felt to me like it had more to do with the retrograde and direct. Like, okay, I'm moving out of this relationship. I'm moving out, and then, you know what? Maybe I need to give this person a second chance with the Venus direct. You'll have to figure that one out yourself. Okay. Here we go. What else we have? How about this one? Yeah, Venus 8th house. Okay, so this is where we get into other people's stuff, right? Like you're jealous of other people's stuff, not other people but being jealous of your stuff. Other people covet your stuff. Secret relationships with Venus in the 8th house. It's another occulted house. And then there's busted. Like, be careful with your secret relationships. Be careful. Be careful. And then you have also Venus retrograde. You're coming into this thing with sex without love, right? Sex without love. Leo's love. Venus is pretty tricky in the 8th house. It is very secretive. Very, very. But you're looking at, okay, well, the sex is good, but my heart's not in it. Right? So sex without love won't work here with Venus retrograde. Beware the fickle, right? Beware the fickle. You're dealing with fixed signs. And when somebody moves off of their commitment, sometimes it has a very deleterious effect with a fixed sign. Oh, beware the fickle writers of wills. That's okay. That's all together the same. Yeah, so watch out. Watch out for people that you have relationships with in terms of legacies and wills. Right? Be careful. Beware those people. Beware them. Keep them in a how should I say this? Friendly and conciliatory space. And then last year, better Planned Parenthood than not. This is a house of conception. All right. We're just ripping through this here. Okay, 9th house. Better make sure you have your passport. Venus retrograde, don't want to travel without it. Don't make legal decisions out of pride and fury. They're very important. If you're going to go and have legal decisions, you're going to be clear-headed. Think twice before defaulting. That has to do, again, with legal decisions and bankruptcy. If you're going to default on something, think twice about it. Your condition could improve. A lot of this is legal stuff. Think twice before defaulting on your student loan. That's what 9th house, higher education. My bad, I should put some periods in here. Think twice before defaulting on your student loan. It's clearly in the air. And this one was kind of a funny one. A message in a bottle is a distant call for love. I think Venus ninth house transits are good for long distance relationships and people from other cultures, other countries, other religions. So the retrograde could also be somebody that you had who was part of your life like that, but for some reason the distance probably made it much more difficult to be with that person. This retrograde might bring that potential and possibility right back into your life. Okay, got a few more to go. We're almost done. 10th house. Yeah, I think it's one of the longest shows I've done. Not really 3 hours. It's not too bad. Right. Looks like most of you are still here. I guess that's a good sign. Venus retrograde, 10th house. Find common ground in the workplace. That's Venus retrograde. Retrace your steps. Here's the other thing with Venus retrograde in the 10th house. It's one of those things where you can be taken advantage of by doing too much, or you could think that you're doing too much and not like it, and the retrograde could make your life very, very difficult. Beware of flattery and sharp knives. I think that has to do with just Venus in the 10th house. There's a lot of flattery with Venus in the 10th house. But with the retrograde, you can't trust it. Not really. Stand up for the little guy or gal, which I always approve of, especially in the workplace. And then take a stand. Now, if you have a job that has an artistic component to it or a creative component, and they're hammering you with efficiency, don't be afraid to stand up for art and the creative aspect. Don't allow sort of Venus to kind of backslide a little bit. You know what's always interesting though too is where Venus goes into in the chart. I mean, maybe with Venus here in the 10th house, you just might be so turned off by the efficiency and all the stuff that goes along with corporations and organizations. You may have that Venus go to the 9th house, and you may say, fuck it, I'm going to go to Europe, or I'm going to go back to school. It's quite possible. Okay. Let's see. Venus in the 11th house. There we go. Taking your toys and going home. That's the house of friends, right? Venus, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm not being treated fairly. You guys are mean. Taking one for the team. Sometimes with Venus retrograde there, you'll take one for the team. Friends to lovers, lovers to friends. Friends to lovers, lovers to friends. Now this one I threw in there. The broken woken. And to me, it was just more of a social statement, right? Purely social. So Leo here, Virgo here, Libra on the ascendant, right? Take us to your leader. I don't know why I put that in there. I guess it's because of the 11th house. Take us to your leader, and book clubs over social networks, which I think is probably a good thing, like re-examining your relationship with social media and social networks. And then last, being unpopular is cooler than you think. So very interesting transit of Venus in the 11th house. And then we got one last one here. And then we're just going to do a quickie on Cheryl Hines. Yes, we were soulmates. Can't get out of God's deal. Yeah, it's like, get me out of here. I'm done. Get me the fuck out of here, God. I'm finished with this contract. Not quite. But then you could do some cool things here. Go find an elder and play some Yahtzee. Watch out for skipping out on rehab if you're trying to kick something, which is a very 11th, 12th housey thing. It's like, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. But not for long. Falling in love at AA. To me, that's a very Venus 12th house experience, right? Like you're meeting with a bunch of people who have a shared emotional theme. And then prison brides beware. Yes, prison brides beware. Venus retrograde in Leo, things don't always work out the way you want them to. I just also think this is re-examining your relationship with the divine. Like that's right here. Can't get out of God's deal. That's your Venus retrograde. Who am I? Why am I here? Why did I sign up for this? Do I have to renew this contract? Sometimes questions are a lot better for eliciting answers than the answers themselves. Okay, let's do a quick Cheryl Hines drive-by real fast because I can feel the impatience of my mother 15 miles away. Here we go. Next week we'll put them together. This week we'll just look at her horsey mouth. She's a wood snake. No birth time here. Let's just look at some of these. She's a total power behind the throne person. Total. I'll show you. Here we go. Cheryl Hines. It's a quickie. Okay, so you see her sun in Virgo. Of course, she has that critical Virgo sun. She's born the 28th degree of Virgo, like crazy. She's born the same day as Bill Murray. Different year. The sun, everything is behind her sun, right? So that's all like the power behind the throne. Mercury, Pluto, like this woman can do some scheming. She can do some scheming, right? She's playing chess. And RFK Jr. is playing checkers, I think. Now, he's a bright guy, but this woman is scheming. And she's got that conjunction with Mercury. So there's the spontaneity that comes along with that. But I think she can be pretty explosive, actually. She can be very, very explosive. Moon in Leo, lots of pride, obviously, right? Here's why he's into her. I mean, he's Capricorn, she's Virgo. She's going to be the power behind the throne. That's how these two work, right? Like he's going to be Zeus and she's going to be Athena. But I can tell you why he's with her. He's with her because of this Mars in Scorpio, Neptune in Scorpio, and Venus in Scorpio. I think Cheryl Hines is a little witchy poo in bed. That's a lot of sexual juju right there. Then you throw in, the sextile to Pluto. I'm sorry, the sextile to Pluto, Mars, Pluto. It's a person who gets what they want. They get what they want, and she's witchy, man. She's got a witchy thing going on. For better or worse, right? And she could have a fucking brutal temper. Moon and Leo, like don't cross this woman with Mars and Scorpio. She might be misguided sometimes emotionally, but don't cross this woman. She'll let you have it. She'll unload on you. And then she'll remember everything. Everything. Not many details escape Miss Hines. Jupiter in Cancer, 0 degrees. About that. Squaring all of her Virgo stuff. Trying to get her to open up and be a bit more nurturing. Does she have any kids? I don't think she has any kids, does she? I don't think she does. He's got plenty of kids. Saturn in Pisces, so she's going through her Saturn return. How about that? going through her Saturn return, she becomes First Lady FLOTUS of the United States. How about that? That's an interesting Saturn return, isn't it? I wouldn't sleep on JFK. The media likes him. He's got the JFK appeal. Then she's got Saturn opposing. It's all about power too, right? It's like aspiring towards power. When Saturn's outside yourself, or any planet that's on the opposite side, it's like it has an indirect relationship to you, or you aspire towards that thing. And her true node's in Gemini, so I'm sure she's just a bubbly little conversationalist with that true node in Gemini. But I think she is Lady Macbeth. I think she's totally Lady Macbeth. With all that, all this behind her sun, it's a lot of energy behind her sun, right? Very intense, especially that Mercury-Pluto conjunction. And then here's kind of this is what he likes. He's into that right there. That's why he walks back all of his statements about vaccines. He gets to plug into witchy poo. That energy. No, it's kind of beguiling energy, seriously. I mean, I don't think she looks like anything. She's got that horsey mouth. But if you know anything about Mars in Scorpio, like it is the hot spot for the transmission of chi. Let's put it that way. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we've been here for a little over 3 hours. And I want to thank you all for being here. Hopefully my camera will be better next week. Look at me, look, I'm 1990s here. Well, thanks for being here. And if you're interested in a reading, you can do that at my website, robertphoenix.com. And my good friend Chris, if you guys want some just kick-ass motherfucking CBD, my friend Chris has a big sale going on here. And it's right here. You get 20% off of any order until midnight tomorrow night. Let's put J4 in there when you check out. And if there are sales coming in on Sunday night, he'll know that they're coming from my show. But you're going to get 20% off. And I think if you put a little note in there and you tell him that you came from Robert Phoenix and you spend $100 or more, he'll throw you some free product in there too. This is a killer sale, 20% off. You'll save a lot of money. BAS, which is essential for keeping your immune system kind of cleansed and purified. That's 33% off. So go get it. Go on over there, get some good stuff, and support an American business and a great friend, my friend Chris. Okay, that's it. Thanks for being here. Have a great 4th. Stay safe and sane. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step in what's possible. Thank you all very much for being here. And if you were here now, you get to have some blueberry cobbler, courtesy of Miss Joan. And that's what I'm going to dig into. Take good care. Bye for now.